a brilliant and ambitious physicist whose connection to communism makes the FBI suspicious, pushes through moral dilemmas to become the father of the atomic bomb. The physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. The book, American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. And you're listening to Lit Society.
Let's get lit!
Let's get lit. Hi, readers. This is Alexis.
And this is Kari.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a podcast about books and drama and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on and on and on.
Some other stuff. Yes.
Yeah. Listen, readers, as you know, each week we select a theme to discuss inspired by the book that we're reading. Sometimes we throw it in at the end and sometimes we hit it at the beginning. And we're going to hit it at the beginning this week. And you know why? Because I'm going to take it right from the title, American Prometheus. Who is Prometheus?
What is a Prometheus?
What is a Prometheus? Okay, so I know Prometheus from Greek mythology. What did you have Greek mythology, Kari?
Yes, mind your business.
Ooh,
I don't remember nothing.
Right, that's the point. I remember a few things about Greek mythology, but Prometheus doesn't stand out, so I wanted to remember. And I remember studying Greek mythology in middle school. Mm-hmm. So listen, there's a part in this book that we're going to read where they're talking about praise for the book. And it says, modern Prometheans have raided Mount Olympus again and have brought back for man the very thunderbolts of Zeus. And this is from Scientific Monthly, September 1945. So that's in the book there, just in the...
Yeah, that's the intro, right?
Yeah, the part where they're giving praise to the book. So who is Prometheus? So Prometheus is a figure in Greek mythology, and he defied Zeus by stealing fire from Mount Olympus. And he gave it to humanity, which allowed them to progress and build civilization. This act of kindness toward humanity angered Zeus. Why would that make him angry? Well, he was angry nonetheless, and he punished Prometheus by chaining him to a rock. Mm-hmm. And so when he chained him to this rock, every day an eagle would come and eat Prometheus' liver, which would, and that liver, however, would regenerate each night because Prometheus was immortal. So he was perpetually tortured.
Yeah.
Yes. And so although he suffered from this plight, Prometheus is said to symbolize rebellion against oppressive authority and the pursuit of knowledge and freedom for humanity. So that's what he represents. His name actually means foresight, and it reflects cleverness and strategic intellect into challenging the established order. Now, how does that come into play with our book and Oppenheimer, American Prometheus, who they're referring to as Oppenheimer? Well, Prometheus is said to inspire the reflections on the balance between progress and consequences, as well as the struggle for individual autonomy against tyrannical forces.
Thank you so much for choosing this as theme of the week, because I thought that by harvesting the power of fire and giving that to someone else, that is where the comparison to Prometheus came from for Oppenheimer. But of course not. You looked a lot farther. I thank you for this insight. And that actually makes a lot of sense, because that's the sum of this book. Not looking, in Prometheus's case, perhaps in Greek mythology, he was his goal was to be generous. But throughout the book that we read this week, or the half that we read this week, I saw like this inability to stop when you're headed toward your goal, whatever consequences present themselves, you just can't stop. So that makes complete sense. I love that you found that.
And really, that is the sum of it. That's all I wanted to share about that little tidbit. I did also do a little bit of research into a little further into why those comparisons exist, but that's it. So I think we should dig in today's book and dig in a little deeper as to why Oppenheimer is referred to as the American Prometheus. But let's take a break first and then we'll come back. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, and we're back. So, Kari, before we get into the book, why don't you tell us a few things about our author and maybe share a little context for the book?
Yeah, there are two authors for this book, American Prometheus, the story of Oppenheimer. The first is Kai Bird. I'll say that it's Kai Bird and Martin J. Sherwin. For Kai Bird, he was born in 1951 in Eugene, Oregon. He's an American author, columnist, best known for his works on the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the United States Middle East political relations, and his biographies of political figures. He's won a Pulitzer Prize for the book we read half of this week, American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. And then we have Martin J. Sherwin. He was born in 1937 in Brooklyn, New York. He's an American historian.
Accent.
Yeah. His scholarship mostly concerned the history of nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation. He served on the faculty of Princeton University, the University of Pennsylvania, University of California, Berkeley, where Oppenheimer lectured, as we know, and as the Walter S. Dickinson Professor of English and American History at Tufts University, where he founded the Nuclear Age History and Humanities Center. Now, both of these men are very much accomplished, of course. Kai Bird's alma mater, Carleton College and Northwestern University, and then Martin J. Sherwin went to Dartmouth, University of California, LA, and as we said, Berkeley. These are scholars, historians who have built their careers around the science of nuclear fission and also the results of the atomic bomb.
Okay.
Is that enough context?
That is plenty. Thank you so much for sharing that information about the authors. Thank you. Now, Kari, would you share why you chose this book for us this week?
Yeah, I wanted us to catch the eye of listeners who may not have ever heard of our show. And because Oppenheimer is up for an Academy Award, I think like 10 Academy Awards.
The movie?
Yeah. The movie, which we haven't seen. I did want to look into the backstory, the manuscript that the movie is based on. And I thought if there's so much interest in the movie, then perhaps the book also would capture our interest. We read a book that really dove into the minutia of one man's life before. That was Hamilton. Yep. We didn't do it for the show. We just did it for like our real life book club. I didn't finish that book. I thought my life too valuable. And so yeah, we'll see. We'll see how we feel about this one.
Yeah. Okay.
And who do you think would enjoy reading this book, Alexis?
So anybody that loves biographies, and I think those that are turned into movies. So the first one of this sort, what do you call those types of books where I guess they are just biographies, but there's something different about this book, and they were able to put it to film, which I always think is pretty cool when they can find a story interesting enough to put to film. This, for me, this book was like a textbook, so it was really dense. That's the word you use, Kari, and I'm gonna take that because it was very dense. So anybody that likes biographies, I think you'd like that. But then also any book that was turned into a movie might have the similar impact. Maybe a Schindler's List, because I know that was a book turned into a movie. So something like that. That's my thought on it.
I will say there's a type of biography that is very story-like. It really has a theme, and it carries that theme throughout the person's life in order to give you an idea of who they were. This is not that type of book. This is the type of book, like Alexis said, it is a textbook. It is as much about Oppenheimer's life as it is about that time period in world history. It's about the 40s, it's about the 50s, and it's about the details, okay?
Yeah,
it is not creating a story for you. So you should know that.
But I'll tell you what,
know.
There is a theme that comes up, especially in this first part of the book, and that's communism.
Yeah, there are themes, right? Like Oppenheimer's relationship to women, which we'll talk about, his relationship to politics in general. But these themes are not followed. It's not a line throughout the book. I'll give you an example. We read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. That book is really about her identifying who she is and why she's valuable or worthy of life and living and just valid as a human. And you see that in how her relatives interacted with racial injustice and how she was confronted with some assault of some kind. You see that theme throughout the book. I did not find throughout this book a theme that I could bite into.
Okay.
So,
okay, I got it.
How long do you think it took to write this book?
More than a year.
More than a day? I know that. Well, listen, remember Sherwin, who went to Berkeley?
Yes.
Or served on the faculty of Berkeley, I should say. He wasn't educated there. He served on the faculty there. He worked on this book for over 20 years before bringing on Kai.
Absolutely makes sense. Absolutely.
Can I tell you, if I work on a book for 20 years and then you help me finish it, even if it take us 30 years to finish it, I don't want to share that Pulitzer with you. This wasn't even your idea. But they share the Pulitzer.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, thanks,
That's their business. Yeah, no problem.
Should we take a break or should we dive right in? You ready to dive right in?
Girl, let's dive in so we can hop out. Ooh.
Okay, let's floor talk about is yours.
Book. All right. You guys, I'm going to try to break this up into edible sizes. Pertaining to things we all probably care about. I hope that makes sense. So let's go into part one.
Please and thank you.
Part one, it begins. Robert Oppenheimer, who I'm going to call Oppie, had spun out of control. He had to make a choice. Should he fight the charges laid against him or resign from his government position? What am I talking about, Alexis?
Are these the charges of communism?
Yeah, anti-American communist ties. I won't even know. I don't know if I can say this is at the end of his career or when he's nearly retired. As a scientist, I don't know if you ever retire, but he is not at all. The bomb's blown up. He's made the bomb. The bomb is blown up. All that's done. And now charges are being brought against him of political affiliations.
Which is crazy. So please.
Especially as you read the book, where you see his kind of attitude toward politics in general. It's very interesting that someone chose to make their political career perhaps on the back of bringing down Oppenheimer. Well, anyway, Oppenheimer had made enemies and allied himself to communists during the worst time for such friends in American history. We know about the witch hunts. We know how people were blacklisted, how their livelihoods were taken from them. His home was tapped. Bad press was published about him. He felt like a hunted man, hunted by the country he loved, the country he'd given so much to. He made a choice. He was going to fight the charges laid against him. He loved this country and he felt he was fit to serve the government as he had been doing for over a decade. So how you going to say I can't do my job after I've been doing it for over 10 years? Some
Explain
of us
that,
can relate
please.
to that.
Mhm.
9 years after the highlight of his career, his government had made him one of the most notable names in their anti-communism campaign. He'd argued to control the nuclear power that he'd helped develop. So he made it. He was like, and I'm saying he made it. I'm being real glib here. Of course, there was a team, a city of people that actually
Literally.
made this. And
Right.
even the idea for the atomic bomb was not his alone. He took the science and the experiments of others and just developed it further. But credit is due. So he was head of the city that basically developed the bomb. So just know that when I say he made it, I'm just doing this to be, I don't know. Yeah,
The
but
credit
just so
is
you know,
given to
we
him.
know.
Yeah, the credit is given to him.
Yeah.
So that we're following the line.
Yeah. So as soon as he made it, he was like, don't use it. It's crazy.
Crazy.
It was a weapon that could wipe out the whole world. A government official asked him, so yeah, that's great. How can we protect ourselves as Americans? And he was like, with a screwdriver. Take that screwdriver and open everyone's luggage, everyone's bag in the whole world. And, they didn't really get the point. The only defense against nuclear terror was the end of nuclear weapons. But that was ignored, his arguments dismissed. The events that would secure his legacy and ironically end his career had begun. So let's get into that. He was wise, he was foolish, according to some. Physicist Freeman Dyson compared Oppenheimer to Faust. Do you know the story of Faust?
Oh, I do, but that's an old memory.
Yeah, so Faust makes a deal with the devil and then it's like, just kidding. I want everything you gave me, but I don't want to give up as much as I had agreed to give up. And just like Faust, Oppenheimer tried to backtrack on his arrangement. Some saw the ridicule of Oppenheimer as anti-Semitic, but who was he and what he truly believed in is what we'll dissect here. His childhood was idyllic compared to some, perhaps. His parents seemed very much in love. They were of money. His mother was an artist. His father was, he was like an industry man, right? A textile importer. And his mother was a painter. What this means is that this was a non-practicing Jewish family. They had money and he felt secure and nurtured at home. It was an irony that his life devoted to social justice and science would end in mass death underneath a mushroom cloud. He was devoted to science from an early age, and he saw it as unrelated to religion. He was wealthy, doted on, but generous and thoughtful at first, maybe even a little humble at first. But quickly, that kind of changed. He was curious, intelligent, a very precocious child, and he rewarded his parents, he said, by developing an ego. Let's talk about what that type of child goes through growing up. So just taking, for example, school and camp life. So a strong influence during his formative years was John Lovejoy Eliot, his teacher at school in ethical studies. Eliot was born in Illinois to a family of abolitionists, and he became a beloved figure in the progressive humanist movement of New York City. He was a critic of America's entry into World War I. He was a man who led charitable foundations and political thinking. For example, when two Austrian leaders of the Ethical Cultural Society in Vienna were arrested by Hitler's Gestapo, do you remember what Eliot did?
Did he help him get out?
At the age of 70, he actually flew to Berlin and spent several months negotiating with the Gestapo for their release.
Isn't that crazy?
And after paying a bribe,
negotiated with the Gestapo.
For several months, and after paying a bribe, Eliot succeeded in sprinting the two men out of Nazi Germany. Oppie's political sensibilities can easily be traced to Eliot and the education he received at that school. A teacher described him as receiving every new idea as perfectly beautiful. That's Oppenheimer. However, his intelligence was often perceived as aloof and his attitude arrogant. In camp, one really terrible situation is described. He made the mistake of writing his parents to tell them he was happy at camp because the boys there were teaching him the facts of life. And his parents got that letter and was like, now what that mean and who and the what for? So they went down to camp. They quickly came in to check in on him, and the camp director announced that a crackdown was happening on salacious stories. For tattling, the boys at camp stripped Oppenheimer naked, doused his genitals and butt with green paint, and left him naked and locked in an ice house overnight. He didn't complain. He suffered in silence. He wanted a friend. He wanted companionship.
And he never left the camp.
No, he stayed there.
He stayed there the rest of the time.
It was no doubt a matter of pride for him. Like, you're not going to run me out of here just because I'm telling everything. He entered Harvard with a fellowship, but he declined the money because he didn't need it. His fellow students admitted he could run circles around them intellectually, aside from like music and romance and feelings. But when it came to science, there was no match. He had no social life. He spent long hours studying because he wanted to graduate within 3 years, which why would you do that if you're not paying? But whatever, if your parents paying.
He wanted time to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, there's some benefit in taking your time too, which I don't think he ever learned. He was always running towards something.
Wasn't there a thing about him wanting to prove that he was just really great and better at everything than everybody else?
Always trying to prove something. Yeah, you're right. He demanded much from his friends. Somebody called it like really stressful. It was kind of a pain to live with him. He had depression, bouts of anxiety. He was at one point diagnosed with schizophrenia. Not an official diagnosis. I don't think this was the assumption that a doctor came to. And he was often, trigger warning, suicidal. He was getting sleep deprived. He was acting strange. He possibly tried to murder someone with a poison apple. Y'all listen. This is all so that he can graduate within 3 years and feel smart and show everyone how smart he is. He is taking on extra work. He is not sleeping enough. Someone was out with him and he was like, I gotta go. And they were like, why? Where are you going? He's like, I gave someone a poison apple. I gotta see how it worked out. No one knows if he kills someone. No one knows.
But he did, so.
Oh, well, no one knows if he killed someone at this point. I think the person was okay.
Yeah.
Then he read French novelist Marcel Proust and was cured. What? He found an ally in this author and he was like, guess what? I'm not loony. Yeah. He met Danish physicist Bohr, who was praised by none other than Albert Einstein. Bohr's mother was Jewish, and in 1922, he won the Nobel Prize for his theoretical model of atomic structure. This is a big deal. This is like when you meet a friend and she's everything you want to be, and she's got everything you want, and she also shares your passions, but she's excelling in them, and you're like, I want to be like you. I don't know what that's like, but that's what I assume it's like. So okay. Bohr, though, became like a god to Oppenheimer. And I don't know if this godlike relationship ever stopped. So throughout his life, you'll see Bohr pop up, say something, and then that becomes Oppenheimer's mission. So dangerous. Yeah, right? This is a man who was religiously aloof, but he seemed to be making a religion out of everything. Oppenheimer became smitten with an intelligent classmate named Charlotte, and so did a peer named Frederick. Contemptuous of authority and armed with a dangerous wit, Frederick liked to tell his Gentile friends, when your ancestors were still living in the trees, mine were already forging checks. As it turned out, Oppenheimer and Frederick would later both work on developing an atomic bomb, but Frederick would do so in Germany. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about his relationship and view of women. He didn't really understand them. He was like, if you need one, like you actually need one, then go ahead and have one, but don't get attached to it.
That's what he told his
you
little
need to
brother,
be thinking
right?
about science.
That's what
Yeah, because his brother seemed to be like a cutie, and like all the girls is loving. Although all the girls seem to be loving Oppenheimer. Describe these men. They are like 100 pounds soaking wet, right?
Right, but they're really tall, dark haired, and then I think Oppenheimer also had blue eyes.
Ooh, he's emaciated. Okay.
Yeah, but
he's
the
weird.
girlies
He talks
love
to
him.
himself constantly, but all the girlies love him.
They say he was a woman magnet. Everybody, all the women would flock to him. He was like the life of a party when it came to women. You see Oppenheimer, you moving in. Okay.
Yeah, and he also had like a soft quality to him, so women felt comfortable divulging their darkest secrets to him, trusting that he would know exactly what to say. Some parts of this book, I'm like, okay, you a fan? Because I feel like this is the Beehive writing a book about Beyonce. Like, how much of this can I believe?
Some of these women wrote things, and you could just draw that out. Don't blame it on
Let's talk about his. I don't get it. His first appearance in the media. Do you remember what it was?
No.
He took a girl out on a date. They like drove to a field. And he was like, I'm going to go for, he told her, I'm going to just go for a walk for a little bit. And so she sat in the car and fell asleep. And then he said he went up to the car and was like, I'll walk home from here. But she was asleep, so she didn't hear him.
Wait,
so he went
told
home.
her, drive home and I'm going to walk home.
So she wakes up, hours have passed. She like, oh, he dead. So she finds the authorities. They go looking for his body. And just on a whim, they decide to try his house, and he in bed sleep. And he like, oh, I told her. It made international news, y'all. He was so embarrassed. Yeah, he left his date in the car. I think the headline was, what was it? Man parks girl walks home. I forget what it was called.
It was cute, though.
It was funny.
Very catchy headline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, Oppie gets his doctorate. His intellect is growing. There's a lot of science stuff here. He's learning things. Bada bing. He finds a desert home. And he's flush with money. He calls it like Palo Caliente, right?
Yep,
Palo Caliente.
Palo. Mm-hmm.
And it is his oasis, okay? He loves it. New Mexico, right? The desert of New Mexico. Now, if you love a place, you think you want to preserve it, like for future generations and stuff. Anyway, we'll get to that. So he just loves New Mexico. It's great. There are some really dreamy scenes of him whenever he can, inviting someone to go for a horseback ride. They stop, can't light a fire, camp, ride some more. It's just beautiful. You can imagine the colorful purple sunsets like they have at the West going down over the mesas. And it takes him out of this go, go, go element of college life that he's been nursing on for so many years. Now, he becomes a lecturer soon at Berkeley. He's a difficult instructor at first. You can imagine he's young. He's got a chip on his shoulder. But a following developed that copied his mannerisms. If he started talking to himself, they started talking to himself. If he'd walk in circles, they'd walk in circles. And this is just evidence of how charismatic he was in a way that we don't really find nowadays. He wasn't like superstar, debonair charismatic. He was a man people in this industry wanted to be like. He was a scientist, a young, brilliant mind that people wanted to emulate. His relationship with Jewish heritage was kind of, it seemed that he was embarrassed of it. And this is really disappointing because he was a man who could learn a language quickly, and he made a point to learn many languages. If people were discussing a text that was originally written in Italian, there's a scene where he went and learned enough Italian to properly quote Dante, stuff like that. But his Jewish heritage, he was distancing himself from in the beginning.
Right.
And he seemed to embrace it. His embracing his Jewish heritage seemed to coincide with him becoming more confident overall as a man in life. Unfortunately, his mother passed away at the age, he was 27 when she died. He was devastated. Soon he started having lunch with his father every day so his father wouldn't be lonely. And this seemed to be a highlight of his father's life. Oppenheimer's friends would quickly become his fathers, and his dad was just so proud of him that he just loved spending time with him. And Alexis mentioned too that Oppenheimer had a brother. He was kind of fatherly over that brother too. It was his younger brother. And the dad started spending more time with both boys. Let's talk about part 2. Okay, let's move on. Love. Jean. It's a girl named Jean. Jean was said to be his truest love. Maybe his first, maybe his only. They met when she was 22 years old. She was petite, beautiful, well off, daughter of an English scholar, devoted to Shakespeare, could quote any sonnet. She looked like a Russian princess.
And related to the royal class.
Aristocracy. Mm-hmm. At least, yeah. Mm-hmm. Brilliant, beautiful. A friend called her worthy of Oppenheimer in every way. That's how people describe me when I met my husband. Oh, that Kari, yes, she's worthy of him in every way.
Did they though?
Anyway, no. A non-practicing member of a few religious institutions, Jean was an early non-fascist. She was like, I don't like Hitler because he says Russia's bad and I love Russian art. And I don't even want to think of a time of Russia not being the best of everything. Their romance was intense from the start, this Jean and Oppenheimer romance. She was aware of his eccentricities. She was introspective like him. She explained away his odd behavior to a childhood focused on intellect. She'd tell friends, he'd be walking in a circle mumbling, and she'd be like, well, he was raised to give lectures at 7. And so he never really developed. I don't know why she's got an English accent. But anyway.
She might.
She didn't. Yeah, she might. She aspired to be a Freudian psychoanalyst. She was against any type of religious claptrap. Their relationship survived for 3 years, and her passion for social causes rubbed off on him. So as he's developing these friends, Bohr and now Jean, it's shaping his personality and his core ideology. He became interested in social responsibility. He devoured Marxist and pro-Soviet literature thanks to his friends and family. He assisted relatives in Germany, helping them financially and otherwise to immigrate to America. One example is his father's sister, his aunt. He helped her and her family to come to America and escape Nazi Germany. They loved him forever for it. Julius, his father, died of a heart attack at 67. It was a shock. He'd grown closer to his sons after the death of his wife, and Oppie's friends had become his, remember I said. So it was a real blow to Oppenheimer, but he was still very close to his brother, almost fatherly, like I said before. Yeah, so the brother is artistic, diverse in interests. He married a woman Oppenheimer didn't approve of. Oppenheimer would call her a waitress. He joined the Communist Party, but his devotion to it was vague. That's all I'm really going to say about the brothers. Typical brother stuff. So, was Oppenheimer a communist? Alexis, can you answer this for us?
No. I can't answer.
No, you can't answer it.
And also, no, he wasn't a communist. That's what he said.
Listen.
Go on.
Listen. If it's a meeting of murderers, I know I'm comparing communists to murderers, but just go with it for a second.
Oh.
If they meet every week in my neighborhood, and I go to the murders, I dabble in murdering. Am I a murderer? I might not hold a card.
Wait now. You said
I might not have a card that says I'm a murderer, but I go to the meetings and I do what they do.
You said you do what they do. If you murdering, you're a murderer, okay? That's different.
Thank you. That proves my point.
He would go to these meetings, not all of them, and there is this line where it says that there were certain things that members of the Communist Party could not do, and he was doing them, so he wasn't a communist. Period.
He was just too arrogant to apply any type of rules to his life. That's all.
That'll make him a communist.
I think this book shows he was aloof about it. He dabbled in it. I mean, to me, it's like, just because you don't have the wherewithal to be truly devoted to a cause does not mean that you are completely excused from it either.
He didn't even pay membership dues, so I don't know how you can say that.
This man a whole communist, but whatever. Here we go. Let's move on. Let's agree to disagree. Oppenheimer met Kitty Harrison and fell in love. Friends were concerned. Kitty been married 3,000 times.
3.
She was German, fashion forward, fine. She was from a Euro aristocracy, old money family too. She became a bohemian in college, hanging. Now, wait, real quick. Let's go ahead and clear up all 3,000 marriages right quick. That Kitty done jumped in and out of.
Uh-huh.
So at first she was like a boho college student, and she'd hang out impulsively with these artists and impulsively married one, a Boston-born musician. She happened upon her husband's diary one day. It's like if you find your boyfriend's phone and you just go through the text messages, you don't expect to find nothing, but maybe you will. You know, it's just a hunch. So she decides to go through his diary. What'd she find, Alexis? On this hunch.
I think the main thing, I know there was something up, but the one that stands out was that he was a homosexual. And so she was, go ahead, able to get the marriage annulled.
Alexis, you're wrong. He was a drug addicted homosexual, drug addict.
That
Mhm.
drugs were first, and also he was a homosexual. But yes, those things did happen.
Mm-hmm. Imagine reading your boyfriend text, and his text message to his friend is like, "Ooh, I sure do love being married and being a drug addict, addicted homosexual."
I'm sure it
What?
did.
So that happened. The courts granted her divorce due to obscenity. Second husband, who she never stopped loving. This man had money, liked to live poor, one of them people. He was a communist, okay? He was like, we gonna live like the people. She was like, how come we can't live like the rich people?
I can't live like this.
He must have been crazy fine. This man was gorgeous.
He was.
Okay?
He was.
They would have to go to the well to get their water. They would pass 5 Starbucks on the way to the well to get their water. She come bringing it back in a bucket like, here you go, baby.
No, anyway, she got tired of that life. She did not want it.
She did leave him for a little bit, but he was too fine. It was like 5 days. She went right on back. But anyway, he died in battle, you guys. It was really sad. She was a 27-year-old widow of a war hero. For stability, she then married an older doctor she'd known for years. Almost immediately, she hated him.
I said as soon as she got married, it was just not what she wanted. She knew, but she hung around.
Okay. She met Oppenheimer at a party. They began dating despite her marital status.
She was
Kitty
married.
spent 2 months.
Big
And
married.
it's just how bold and arrogant
Yes.
Oppenheimer was. He was like, hey, you and your husband want to come to my desert house? Hang out, because I love inviting people there. Her husband couldn't come. And Kitty was like, well, I can still go.
He said maybe invite your wife too. Maybe your wife can come without you. I don't know. It might be dangerous, but invite her too. Tell her to
you
come.
can't come? Can Kitty come? No. Anyway, soon she was pregnant with Oppenheimer's child. Civilly, Oppenheimer called the husband. Do. I don't know if they had phones. I don't care.
Not if did they have phones. It's the 1940s. Okay.
Yeah, did they? I don't know. And he was like, hey, your wife got my baby, so go ahead, divorce her. The doctor conceded. And so they divorced. And on the same day of their divorce, Oppenheimer and Kitty were married. They had a daughter and then later a son who Kitty barely tolerated. She did not like that little boy.
She didn't emotionally connect to the children because they were gone immediately after they were born. In someone else's care, if you will.
I'm sorry. Let's just dissect this for a moment. It is important for parents to spend, especially those first few months with their child, to connect emotionally. Fine. But my parents went on a trip and left me with my grandma. I mean, they didn't abandon me.
How old were you, though?
These people just went on vacation. I was a baby in the arms.
That's nothing. How old were you? Were you 6 months old? That's nothing. This child was 2 months old and they left. immediately.
Well, we
a
ain't
month
talked about
after.
it, but these are not good parents. Now, the book don't say this, but these are bad parents.
That's the
This isn't the
drama
only
and
child
judgment
that
we
they
like to
leave with
insert.
somebody.
Nope. The other girl, the girl they left with somebody too, remember?
Listen, just real quick, and then I ain't gonna talk about it no more. These people, it is so hard for me to read this book because these are the most selfish, privileged people I have ever read about or heard of in my life. These people had a child, didn't like the child from the get. Let's not pretend. So he took Kitty away so she could go party. They could go have a good time. And they left the child with a family.
This was 2 weeks.
They came back and was like, hey, y'all, we back. And the family was like, oh, here's your child. And they was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, put that in the bag. We'll take it.
Silly.
Years and years later, they have a little girl. Someone they know miscarries. They leave the little girl with the woman and act like nothing happened. Like they never had that little girl. One day, Oppenheimer go to the woman's house.
No, wait.
They sipping martinis and gossiping. And the woman is like, well, this is nice, but don't you want to see your daughter? And Oppenheimer goes, oh yeah, you want to keep her? Or... The woman is disturbed by this conversation. She's like, maybe you should talk it over with Kitty. And he's like, oh, no, because I know it's cool. You can keep her. You want her? She probably cute. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't be looking at her like that, but she probably cute.
First, I wanted to talk to you first. The
woman said, I love children, but this is your child. So anyway. Let's move on. Whew. Y'all, I'm tired. The science. January 1939, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann successfully demonstrated that the uranium nucleus could be split into 2 or more parts. They'd achieved fission by bombarding uranium, one of the heaviest of the elements, with neutrons. Yes, science. I hate this stuff. So when Oppenheimer heard about this, he was like, it cannot happen. That's impossible. And then he went to the chalkboard and proved mathematically how it could not be done. But the next day, the experiment was successfully repeated by someone else. And when he saw it, right away, he accepted it. In less than 15 minutes, not only did he agree with the reaction, believing it to be authentic, but he also speculated that in the process, extra neutrons would boil off that could be used to split more uranium atoms and thereby generate power or make bombs. It was amazing, someone said, to see how rapidly his mind worked. Steps were being made toward destruction. I'm trying. I'm trying with this book.
Way to make it exciting, Kari. Way to make it.
Destroy. Why are we doing this? Oh, just because we can. That's all.
It had a purpose.
We'll talk about it. So he was instructing at Berkeley at this time. He was careful at this moment, even fatherly toward his students. If he saw his students were in over their head, he'd assign them things that they could tackle so that they could reach their scholarly goals without hindrance. So he's different now as a lecturer. You see him being more just caring in his dealings with people as he's becoming more satisfied in his domestic life, except for them kids he don't like. Communism was still big, although many had cards and attended meetings as a sort of hobby. Okay. These people had like very little to devote themselves to aside from their careers. And so sometimes they would just pick up communism. It seemed idealistic. Lab workers were forming unions nonchalantly. A bomb project was being conducted by the U.S., an effort to develop the bomb to end all bombs before Germany developed it. Do you remember the name of that bomb project?
The Manhattan Project?
You know it. It was a program of research development undertaken during World War II to produce the first nuclear weapon. So This made the rise of communism a real concern now. It used to be something you could just do sometimes, but now with this Manhattan Project going on, people wanted to be a part of that. And you couldn't do that if the government suspected you were a communist. It's all fun to buck against authority until you want to be part of authority. You actually want to be part of the future of science. So a communist hunt was started and a slew of teachers were fired. Oppenheimer was eventually brought into the bomb group, into the Manhattan Project for his intellect. They just could not deny his intellect. He was too smart. He would probably figure it out anyway, not just the formulas that they were trying to create, but also just the existence of the Manhattan Project. He'd probably figure it out. So they was like, come on, you can be part of the club, even though we think you a communist.
Mm-hmm.
And they never stopped being suspicious of him. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. After this event, Oppenheimer's idealistic political views and causes switched to concerns of local politics. Now he's about America. He's a true patriot now. He's like, I'm going to stop concerning myself with Spain and start concerning myself with more pressing matters. So eventually he cut off all communist friends. He stopped biting into communist theory publicly. American government was still suspicious of him. Against the recommendation of many, Oppenheimer became a candidate to lead the central lab for all those working on the bomb project. So within the Manhattan Project, you have the Los Alamos project, I think it's called. But anyway, that's what Oppenheimer would eventually be over. And people were like, are you sure? Because he probably a commie. And they was like, yeah, but he too brilliant. So let's just keep him and then tap his phones if he has a phone, because it's the 40s. They got a phone, right?
Yeah, that's like keep your enemies close.
SyncTac, Nokia. Yeah. Keep your enemies close. American interests really became divided here between chasing communists and racing to a powerful bomb before political enemies got to that science. Oppenheimer's associates were illegally monitored, surveilled, drafted, fired, blacklisted. So let's talk a little bit about the Chevalier affair. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So there was this situation where a man named Chevalier came to, I want to say it's Oppenheimer's home for dinner. And at this home...
Yeah, if Bohr is like a god to Oppenheimer, Chevalier is like his best friend.
Yeah, so he comes...
They're like the couple that this couple always hangs out with.
Okay, and so he comes to this house for dinner. And while they're there in the kitchen, while the ladies and somebody else are in the other room, another couple, he asked him to share secrets on the Manhattan...
Chevalier does.
To share secrets on the Manhattan Project, of which he was over, the Los Alamos.
Yeah. Division of it.
Yeah.
So Chevalier is like, hey, since I got you here, you and I have a friend. He's English. He's just like us. And, he just wants to know if you have any information about scientific work that you could share with a diplomat, like a gentleman.
That's so...
Now, what happens next is compared to a story where everyone's version of it is different. Oppenheimer says he right away told Chevalier, that's treason. No, you're bad. Stop. And then they had martinis. Chevalier was like, Oppenheimer was upset. And then we had martinis. Kitty was like, I was actually in the room. And you'll find that Kitty gets really bored in life because she's actually a genius. And to just reduce her life to the mother of these unwanted children and Oppenheimer's wife, it drives her to alcoholism and busybodying. So maybe she's telling the truth, probably not. So she says, I was in the kitchen. Why would they have this conversation with you around? But that's what she said. And she says she's the one who said, hey, that would be treason. And then Chevalier's wife Chevalier's wife got mad at him. They divorced. He was not the best husband in her opinion. So she was like, what happened was my no good husband came to the house funky because he didn't hardly bathe and his teeth was nasty. And he was ugly that day. And he went in the kitchen and I already knew what he was going to say because he wasn't nothing but a treasonous fool. And he went in there and dropped some treason on the table. And Oppenheimer was not having it.
Wow.
And that's what happened.
That's what she said.
So, yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
So this will not go away. This conversation was picked up during illegal surveillance or with illegal surveillance. And it will become the foundation of the case against Oppenheimer. Even though right away they all agree that he was not with the idea and he turned it down vocally.
The problem is,
anyway,
he wouldn't, when they talk to him about it, he never reveals all the people involved. So that's problematic. It seemed like you hiding something if you do that to the FBI.
It's more involved than just the British diplomat, Chevalier, his wife, and Kitty and him, but he won't say who else. So let's talk a little bit about Los Alamos, the world's first nuclear weapons laboratory. At first, Oppenheimer was naive and in over his head when he was picked to lead this project. He underestimated its size and cost. He was like, yeah, give us a couple dollars and 20 people, we'll get it done. Yeah. This outpost at Los Alamos in New Mexico grew from whatever their group was originally to over 4,000 people. They burned through millions of dollars. The town was like this like-minded, protected community, averaging 25 years old. No one was over 50. It was a utopia for some people, at least at first, but soon it became like a cage in many ways. They was like, if a friend invited you out to eat and you just didn't want to go, they drive past your house and be like, I see you in them windows. It was just too much. Everyone knew everyone's business. One of the houses got turned into a burlesque house. And then diseases started spreading.
And only
they tried to close it.
Did they close it down?
Yeah, they all knew about it. Anyway, it was just, yeah. Anyway, soon it became to feel like a cage, especially to Kitty. Kitty and Oppenheimer's relationship was actually pretty good. It seems to other people that she respected him, although she cut him off in conversation and kind of speak down to everyone. No one really liked Kitty, but it was undeniable that she was, I don't know. She was like a great host because she had nothing else to do. And she was an intelligent woman. She preferred the company of men. Men didn't like her either. Everyone could tell she was mean.
They have words about her.
Know, yeah. And you know who she didn't like? Her kids. So anyway, actually that reminds me. The government started spying on their house, but Oppenheimer and Kitty, they knew it. So Kitty would trick government officials into babysitting her kids and she wouldn't come back for hours. Do you remember that? Yes. And once the head of the FBI, whoever was over this case, realized what was going on, he pulled his men off the case. She'd be walking to the kitchen like, where are them communist papers? I'll be right back. And then she go shopping for like 5 hours and come back. And they'd be like, where are the communist papers? She'd be like, what are you talking about? I've been drinking. She had problems.
She was not.
She had problems. She was not happy and she was not occupied properly. So scientists, once accustomed to loose boundaries and choosing their hours, were now under strict rules and painfully long hours. A sense of mission and duty was the only thing keeping all of these people going. Mm-hmm. Wartime compelled some mild-mannered men to contemplate the once unthinkable. A friend proposed kidnapping him and Oppenheimer's old friend, Heisenberg. They were like, you hear what Heisenberg doing in Germany? Should we kill him? For real. That was the conversation.
Yeah.
And Oppenheimer was like, no, let's just tell the government. And the friend was like, okay, you sure though? Because I'm down. Oppenheimer was like, yeah, I'm sure, man. Nah. So Oppenheimer had other activities the government was noting. He was seeing Jean twice a year. Remember, that's the one that looked like who was really in love with Shakespeare. She was possibly an aristocrat. I think a Russian aristocrat. Anyway, he really liked that girl. They may have been they may have been together while he was with Kitty, but he definitely went to see her about twice a year, and the government knew about it. During their last visit together, Oppenheimer said that she admitted to still loving him. The FBI suspected, though, that they were sharing secret intelligence between each other.
Because she
was working with some Europe.
Yeah, because she was believed to be a communist anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So the FBI was constantly spying on Oppenheimer. Eventually, they asked about the Chevalier conversation. Oppenheimer gave them the name of his best friend, Chevalier, and that only it became known as the Chevalier affair. Unfortunately, Jean unalived herself. She drowned herself in the bathtub, maybe giving herself drugs, but this is all very suspicious. Her father found her. He never called authorities. He went through her house looking for papers, photographs. He was burning things. It seemed getting rid of evidence. And who knows if that was her father who did it? Maybe someone found her who was spying on her. Her father later found her and all that was already done. Listen, no one really knows or understands if Jean took her own life or if she was killed because of her political ties. Right, that's that.
Right, because one thing for sure, they said if she would have had a full meal and then took these drugs, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, she sat down for some full meal that she prepared. I don't know.
It just doesn't make sense.
Everybody was like, she would have just had Fruit Loops.
Nothing.
Or nothing.
So it get right into her stream, but yeah.
Yeah, if she's taking a drug to unalive herself, then food would stop the metabolization of that. So then why would she take food? And she's intelligent. She knows that.
However, she did deal with a lot of depressive episodes. Not only I think she was manic depressive. I don't know if that's the same term they use today, but she did have some mental health issues that would send her deep into depressive moods.
Yeah. Yeah. So now in history, we find Soviet forces have encircled Berlin, the German capital, on April 25th, 1945. That same day, Soviet forces linked up with their American counterparts, attacking them from the west and central Germany. After heavy fighting, Soviet forces neared Adolf Hitler's command bunker in central Berlin. On April 30th, 1945, Hitler committed suicide. Within days, Berlin fell to the Soviets. German armed forces surrendered unconditionally in the West on May 7th and in the East on May 9th. Victory in Europe, VE Day, was proclaimed May 8th, 1945, and celebrations in Washington, London, Moscow, and Paris commenced. Truman seemed receptive to aiding the Japanese towards surrendering. General Eisenhower was convinced there would be no need to bomb the Japanese. But an arms race with the Soviet people needed to be preemptively halted, it was felt by some. This is very interesting. There is still an idea that World War II ended by how, Alexis?
By the bomb.
By the bomb. Yeah. The bomb ended World War II. But it is common knowledge that World War II is basically over before the bomb was dropped. Yeah. Why? Not only that, the bomb was not dropped along a military line. It was dropped on civilians purposely. It cannot be said for sure that on the morning of the Hiroshima bombing, Oppenheimer knew that the Japanese were looking for peace, but they were. It is evident that after this date, he felt misled by his government and was not quick to trust government officials again. Unsure why, Oppenheimer named the test of the bomb Trinity. So let's back up a little bit to testing Trinity, to the test site. Trinity. As if people were not already anxious enough, a last-minute test firing of the implosion explosives without the plutonium core had just indicated that the bomb might be a dud. It might not even work. This is before the test, not Hiroshima, but before the test site at Trinity. Oppenheimer recited a stanza from Hindu religious texts, and it went like this. In battle, in forest, at the precipice in the mountains, on the dark great sea, in the midst of javelins and arrows, in sleep and confusion, in the depths of shame, the good deeds a man has done before, defend him. Everyone involved was overworked and exhausted. At 5:30 a.m., the test was conducted. Heat could be felt on the face 20 miles away. The mushrooms soared to the heavens. It worked. It worked indeed. Everyone returned to Los Alamos rejoicing. Oppenheimer knew the Japanese cities that would be targeted. Days later, after the testing at Trinity, he began muttering, those poor little people, referring to the Japanese. He cited with an air of resignation, like, too bad for them. That very week, however, Oppenheimer was working hard to make sure that the bomb exploded efficiently over those poor little people. And then we come to August 6th, 1945. Later in the day, the news was announced over the Los Alamos public address system. Attention, please. Attention, please. One of our units has just been successfully dropped on Japan. Frank Oppenheimer was standing in the hallway right outside his brother's office when he heard the news. His first reaction was, thank God it wasn't a dud. But within seconds, he recalled, one suddenly got this horror of all the people that had been killed. The bomb had been dropped with no discussion, no peaceful demonstration for the Japanese people. That day, a crowd gathered in the auditorium. Oppenheimer took the stage and he raised his hands like a prized fighter. Everyone cheered. But what really happened? So the population of Hiroshima when the bomb was dropped was approximately 350,000 people. This figure includes residents, some military personnel, people from surrounding towns and villages mobilized to demolish buildings in the city, and people from Japan's colonies, Korea, Taiwan, and the Chinese continent. Some of the latter were conscripted laborers. A few foreign students were there from China, Southeast Asia, and U.S. prisoners of war were also in the city. The exact number of deaths from the atomic bombing is still unknown. Estimates place the number of dead by the end of December 1945, when the acute effects of radiation poisoning had largely subsided, at roughly how many do you think, Alexis?
I don't remember.
140,000. So this is supplemental information. I didn't get this from the book, just so you know. What I wanted to do here is just give a POV to the people of Hiroshima. Since our POV sticks with, as it should, Oppenheimer. But going back to him, virtually everyone in the street for nearly a mile around was instantly and seriously burned by the heat of the bomb, a scientific observer said. So among, I believe, the Alamos township, these scientists, some after the damage or after they thought it was safe, some went to Hiroshima to see what had happened. And this is what they said. The hot flash burned suddenly and strangely. They, the Japanese, told us of people who wore striped clothing upon whom the skin was burned in stripes. There were many who thought themselves lucky, who crawled out of the ruins of their homes only slightly injured, but they died anyway. They died days or weeks later from the radium-like rays emitted in great numbers at the moment of the explosion. End quote. Revulsion began to grow around the township scientists. People became physically ill thinking about what they'd contribute to. Oppenheimer realized quickly this was only beginning. Destruction would only grow greater, and no country is safe. And that's the end of part 1. Alexis, should we take a break?
Let's do it.
We're back. Alexis, what did you think of American Prometheus, The Triumph and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer, Part 1?
It was informative. It, like I mentioned earlier, was quite a dense book. So it was a lot of information shared about Oppenheimer and his experiences in his youth, relationships with the women he had and didn't have. So it was interesting in that sense. And then learning this bit about the fact that the war was practically over, just as,
So did you not know this?
I didn't know that.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. It's not, I don't know if it's widely discussed.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
I can't say whether or not it was talked about in school or not. I just know I didn't know that. I thought the bomb ended the war and that was it.
And the bomb is a perfectly neat bow to tie up the war, especially when you think of all the evils that Nazi Germany brought about. Then you say, oh, well, you saved it. You plugged up the leak with the bomb and that's your bow. Mm. But Hitler had already taken his own life. Germany had already surrendered. What was this for?
It was excess.
Japan was open to surrendering. It was for something, clearly. Yes. It just wasn't for what a lot of people think.
And then not only the test bomb, but another bomb was dropped, right?
You're talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
So they did drop 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Not the test at Trinity, because they ain't learned nothing from that.
Yeah. So if that is the case, what I'm hearing is correct. They dropped 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll end it with that. I won't say anything more. But Kari, share your thoughts on this first half, chapters 1 to 23 on American Prometheus, please.
Mm-hmm. So, this book is exhausting. When you think about what's at stake, the actions of the majority we're coming in contact with through this book don't make sense to me. Everyone is so narcissistic. They are so absorbed in the advancement of science, not just for the sake of science, but for the sake of their name. There's a point where Oppenheimer is being considered to run the division.
Los Alamos.
Sorry. Thank you, Los Alamos. And it's like, but he don't have a Nobel Prize, and we all got Nobel Prizes.
That's what they said.
Like, period. And it's like the titles, the awards, that is the accolades and the public recognition. So many brilliant minds are focused on that. They are so eager. Now, some truly are fearful that Germany will develop this before the Americans do. And if we don't stop them, we will be the victim of this bomb. So we honestly have no choice. And in that way, they feel comfortable just washing their hands of responsibility. It's as if history is moving them to a decision that they can't avoid. But then they got a hold of what is very likely to be Germany's plans for a bomb that no one has ever seen before. And it was wrong. Yep. It was like, they throwing parts at people.
Yeah,
that's not like, a bomb. Them bomb parts.
They're nowhere near close. So we all good. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So historians continue to debate whether this decision to drop these bombs on Japanese civilians was the right thing to do. And the way we even talk about this is just so casual. Like, even the way the bombs were named, it was like Little Boy and Fat Man or something. You know what I'm talking about? Little Man, Fat Boy, something like that. It's like, this is serious. This is serious. Everybody stop. Everybody sit down. Can we get in a room? However, you can't even trust the people on your team Because while you're bringing them on to fight for your cause, you think they're actually totally against the mission of your country. So, yeah, it's tricky.
You're investigating.
I'm not having fun.
You're investigating the people that are running this organization to help you develop this bomb. That is to take
no
out people.
unity.
Yeah.
There's no unity here. So that's that.
Well,
did I say what I thought about? You didn't ask me what I thought about
I
it.
sure did ask you what you thought about it, but
I'm not having fun. I'm not having fun. I'm not.
Well, we're gonna finish the book, Kari.
Oh yeah, we better.
Okay. So what we doing next week? Okay.
Oh yes, Oppenheimer Part 2. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yes, you guys.
Bring the attitude and the excitement back, okay?
Oh, it's the best part of my week. This book is terrible. Hey, y'all, listen. Don't read it. Don't read it, but please listen to our show.
It's too soon. Thank you for listening.
Do anything else. Why did I pick this book? I apologize to everyone involved.
And this is part 1, but we cover in part 2 next week. And I will cover that for us, okay? So thank you for listening to Lit Society. We look forward to meeting up with you next week, Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria, that's me, and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave a comment about why you absolutely love us on both of those platforms. Also, take a look at us on YouTube. We're here. Hi. Good to see you. Thank you for showing up. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society and visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. And until next time, read something.
Read something.